Welcome to this episode of Green Pastures. The topic for today's discussion is the relevance of old age homes in Christian culture. And we have a wonderful panel for discussion today.
Hi, I'm Neville Norona. I hail from Goa. I currently work with a bank, a private bank in Goa. I've come here with my wife Carol and our little one Joshua.
Hi, I'm Carol Norona. I'm from Goa. I'm here with my husband Neville and son Joshua. I am a teacher by profession, a mother and a wife by vocation, and a stay-at-home mom by choice.
I am Sister Joylyn, belonging to the Congregation of Holy Family. I'm working in Mary Mother Province. Presently, I'm doing my Masters in Journalism and Mass Communication from St. Joseph's College, Irnalakuda.
I'm Robin Mathai. I'm from Calicut in Kerala. I'm an engineer and an MBA by training. I work in the field of sales and marketing, and I'm based out of Dubai, UAE.
In our Christian context, we know we have been taught from our childhood, and that's the fourth commandment, honor your father and your mother. But saying that, I would also like to mention that there's a increasing number of old age homes, primarily by Christian missionaries and Christians who take care of such old age homes. So, Robin, what is your opinion regarding the relevance of old age homes in the Christian context?
My parents are based in Kerala, and I'm based in Dubai. I got a younger sister who lives in the US. Because of our careers and our family choices, we are based where we are. And my parents live here alone, in their own house. In the earlier days, it was okay when their health was still fine. They could take care of each other, and we could support them. But with progressing age, more frequent hospitalization episodes, it becomes difficult. They had reached a stage where they could just take care of themselves, not even each other. And so hospitalization was a challenge. Post-hospitalization recovery was a challenge. And while between my sister and I, we would fly down and take time out from work to take care of them, but it's not the most practical solution. So in my opinion, though not the ideal situation, a good old age home has its own merits, where they would have access to good healthcare, emergency health services. They could be with like-minded people, a little more social contact with others. And if it's a good institution, well run, I would vote for it.
Carol, what's your opinion regarding this?
Since you started with the fourth commandment, I want to mention the entire commandment. Honor your father and your mother. That is the only commandment that comes with a promise, so that you may live long in the land that God has given you. So, I am talking from the perspective of my old age. Tomorrow, when I grow old, however unable I am to take care of myself, or however lonely I am, where would I want to be? In my home, where I feel secure with my people, or with new people, altogether make new friends at this old age, learn to adjust with newer people. So I think my sense of security comes from the fact that I'm deeply rooted in my home. This has been my home. These are the people that I have known for long. And this is where I will feel the safest, and I would like to die here. So that is my perspective. I'm purely thinking from what I would want when I grow old. And therefore, I feel in the Christian context, as you said, relevance of old age homes, it probably is the only solution to some. But to me, it doesn't seem like a good solution.
Yes, Neville.
Well, what Carol says has its merits, and what Robin says is also very practical. So, in the Christian perspective, first, let's look at it from the point of view where somebody sets up a old age home. Why do they set it up? I mean, obviously they see that there is a need there, and as a Christian, whether you're a congregation or you're a priest, the church setting it up, they see the need, and they see the need to share love. And then if I look at it, that they have set up a place, would it mean that somebody is taking advantage of it in the right sense because he needs it? And it doesn't mean he doesn't care for his parents. And when you look at Carol's perspective, she would like to be independent even in her old age. And she would like to be in the home because her emotions are attached there. But maybe in her old age, she would not be able to look after herself. And her children, and that is our children, would probably at that time also think like Robin. If there is something that they can fall back on, it gives them a comfort to live their life as they are. Otherwise, they're with one foot at home, in their home wherever they are, and with one foot in their parents' place. And it could be far apart. So yes, we need an old age home, no doubt. Run by the church, even better. Because then you know there is a element of love that goes there, at least as commanded by Jesus. And therefore when Robin says well run, he's also referring to the same context. That somebody is really there, loving and caring for my parents. More than the commercial value, the value of love. Yes, it is definitely required. I think it is for each one to decide whether they can really let go of their parents because of practical constraints, or they'll go that extra mile, sacrifice something and be there. But that's each one's individual choice. But having said that, there are so many old age homes coming up with a commercial value in mind. And that is the fear, that people are out there to make money.
See, in Robin's case, it's a genuine thing. He has no other option. He wants to be with his parents, he wants to take care, and there's a goodwill attached, as we said, that he wants that his parents are taken care of. But there's also a fact that there are so many people who are misusing this old age home. In the name of old age home, they just consider that their parents are a burden, and they just want to discard them off. Kind of discarding. I don't want to use that word, but we see there are people who are very well off to do, very well settled. They have all the luxuries they can afford, but just they start feeling that the old age parents are too difficult. Even though they may not be bedridden, they may not need extra care. They just need their presence. Sometimes parents say we just need their presence with us, because by the time we are old, you have lost all you have really worked hard for your children. You have given them all that they need, and then it comes a time where they need the children. But that time, children have nothing to give to their parents, and they just want to dump them off. And they think that old age homes are the best option for them. Sometimes they may not even care whether they are looked after, whether they have given the proper care and all.
So, sister, my point of view was, if they're pushing the parents out to an old age home, it's still acceptable. What if they just push the parents out? That is the larger question. For those who don't care, what is the level at which they don't care? They may just be throwing the parents out, because yesterday we lived in a joint family system. As we get into this nuclear family age, everybody lives, if you're thinking of a place like a Bombay, a one-bedroom house is a luxury. So when the children can't afford it, and the daughter-in-law can't get along with the mother-in-law, and all these fights, infighting happens, the parents are pushed out. And it gets so bitter that where they go really doesn't matter after a point.
They just abandon them.
They just abandon them. Now, if these people are pushed to an old age home, somebody assists them to an old age home, good.
They have a definite place to go.
And therefore, coming back, when we talk of it in the Christian context, is this acceptable? Is this acceptable?
The existence of the old age home.
Not the existence of it.
Abandoning.
The abandoning. Is it accepted in what we've been taught right from our childhood? The Bible was written for the parents specifically. When you said, the fourth commandment talks of it and there's a promise attached. I think what we need to do is probably go back to where we taught catechism in church to reinforce the family structure at that point.
It's a broad spectrum, I would say, in terms of, if you look at how the world is moving today, my perspective is more from an expatriate or an NRI kind of situation, which is quite different from the majority of people out here, I would say. But you look at parents, their perspective, they spend a lot of effort, and I'm talking about the time when we were growing up. Life wasn't easy, and they really sacrificed quite a lot to make sure that their kids secure a good education. Costs money and a lot of effort as well. Education is not cheap, but they struggle through all of it, put them through a good education. A lot of them settle abroad. And then the parents have a second role to play of babysitting their grandchildren. If it is done out of choice, it's a pleasure. If it's done out of compulsion, because the children need to go to work, and so the grandchildren need to be taken care of, that's unfair. But a lot of these parents go through that. And every time a grandchild is born, the routine comes up again. And finally, when everything that the parents can do productively is over, and they come to a stage where they need help, then how does that whole equation start playing, is the question. And that's where this wide spectrum comes. If circumstances make it not possible for parents to take care of their children under the same roof, which is the ideal situation, in their twilight years, spending time with their children and grandchildren possibly is the most joyful part. If that is practically not possible, then a good old age home might serve the purpose. But then, other than that, being thrown out of the house or being seen as a burden, now that all your productive dimension of your life is over, now you're getting to be a burden on me, and hence you go figure out something for yourself. It could be an old age home or out on the street. That's extremely unfair, and it goes totally against our Christian values, for sure.
Yeah. So it roots from the idea that today's culture is moving towards. If you are useful to me, I want you. When you are useless, I throw it. It's a use and throw culture that we are stepping into, all of us are stepping into. And then particularly when you come into Christian context, God does not love you for what you do. He loves you for who you are, for just being you. So in the Christian context, with regards to this topic, what I feel is, whether my parents are not useful to me anymore, I cannot push them out to an old age home because now they are no longer useful to me. I have to love them for being them because I was not useful to them when I was a kid. They didn't push me out and said, when you are useful, come back. So
It also the longer term view is, at least in our parents' generation, a majority of their parents were taken care of at home.
yes.
In our generation, there is this situation where old age homes has some sort of relevance.
Yes.
In Kerala particularly, where a lot of people are expatriates. Yeah. But our children will be growing up watching this and learning from it, and understanding that yes, it's okay once you serve out your useful part of life.
It's time for you to
It's
go.
time for you to go. So rest assured that if that's what they grew up learning and seeing and observing, that we're going to meet the same fate.
Yes.
So we need to be aware of that.
Yeah. In fact, if I have to step into shoes, I have this friend of mine whose grandmother, at a very young age, at the age of 60, decided that she is going to buy a place in an old age home, run by the church, of course, by the nuns. And my decision she took when the whole family said, "What are you doing?" She said, "No, I want to be independent. I want to be happy." So she had her own room. Her savings she put there. It's a voluntary decision. She has her own fridge. And she's happy. Every time the family goes for holiday, she accompanies them.
Okay.
She didn't want to be a burden, but that's a choice she made.
Sure.
But when I remember doing a project on, during the catechism days, when we were learning about how to teach children, we went to an old age home. A very different story there. There was sadness. There was sadness there because they felt that they had given so much to nobody to look after it. And some of them, of course, had anger. Some, like his parents probably would relate to him and saying they can't look after. But where there was anger and there was resentment was a concern. Because they felt abandoned, remember. Okay? It's a very sad feeling when you feel abandoned. And what you're saying is very relevant. This lady who took that decision, choice, she probably was forward thinking many years ahead. She was the next generation. But she thought of it and she is so happy.
Because it was done out of choice.
Choice.
And she took her decision herself.
So maybe when you grow up, that will be a choice you make. Because you can correlate to what your children, you don't want them to go through a stress. So you correlate and you make your decision. But when I come back to India, I see that we are not yet there.
Yes.
Because you're an expat, you think like this. And lots of people in Kerala probably think like this. Because there's a lot of expat. You come to Goa, and Goa is, the expat there is there very short term. He's coming back to Goa. Or his wife is here. The rest of the family is here. There, the concept of an old age home is still abandonment.
Yes.
You are abandoned. They are abandoned. And that is why, there is that certain social tag which is there, and you say, it's because when you look at it from a point of view of rest of India, which is not so expat, there you're expected to look after your parents. And because of history, because of our past, because of our tradition of joint families, we always had joint families. We are going nuclear, but we are letting go of the good values we learnt in the past. And that is sort of what breaks the family. And as you said, children are watching. When you do it out of anger and out of greed and out of those kind of things where you push your parents away because you can't get along with them, or you put it because you want their property, and because you have 10 siblings and you're the only one staying in that house, you want that house, so you kick them out. Your children are watching you. And that's where you're very right. Children will learn. They will learn by what they see.
It's very acceptable to then do it.
Yes. Because they think, you take it. I mean, that's the way I learned it. And everything we do is how we learn. Right? And some part of it is, of course, in the circumstances I am in. Part of it is there, and part of it is what I learned. So children will see what you do. Now, I obviously want him to think of me when I'm old. Right? Because I'm thinking of him today. And I teach him 100 times how to lift his hand and touch me like this. When I'm old, will he want to do the same? Because I will forget. I'll have a weak memory at that time. I want him to do the same thing to me at that time. Right? So that's the connection. For him, I'm an old man already.
There is this anecdote of an old man and his son sitting in the room, and there's a crow outside, and the crow makes a noise, and so the father is old and forgetful, so he says, "What was that?" And the son says, "That's a crow." 2 minutes later, the noise comes again, so he says, "What was that?" And the son says, a bit irritated, "That's a crow." And a third time, he says, and the son says, "Come on, how many times will I tell you this?" And then the father says, when you were a little boy, there was a crow like this. And you asked me maybe 100 times, and I told you 100 times it's a crow. So, it depends on who needs who.
How life takes you.
There's another dimension to it. I mean, the point Neville you're making is extremely relevant in the sense, what are the motivations for someone to move into an old age home? Is it out of choice? Wonderful. The lady that you spoke about on her terms. It's not the normal situation.
It's not normal.
It's not possible for everyone to think on the same
Not
level.
everyone thinks like that, yes.
And she took that decision when her children were able.
Yes.
She was 60. Today she is 80. She's still in that 20 years in that retirement home.
She was very forward
She's
thinking.
a very happy lady, and she joins the family, like he said, on all
Every
their
holiday,
things. Every holiday.
They go abroad, she's there with them.
And
She just takes a break.
is there.
Very
so
much.
that's out of choice.
That's all.
And then there's the next category, which is out of the situational thing, because there isn't anyone to take care of them.
Yes.
And out of the best interests
Yes.
of the parents,
Yes.
yes, it's an old age home. And then things start getting worse from
Yeah.
there on,
Yeah.
saying they had no choice, so they had to go do it, or they were pushed out and they had no other place. So, and it keeps getting worse. The story can get very tragic. And that's where this abandonment point that you made is extremely relevant, and that's extremely painful. And I think it goes totally against Christian values. The other side of the same coin is the old age homes itself. It's a trend these days because it tugs on emotional strings to badmouth anything and everything about old age homes. They're money making, they have no interest to the people in mind, and they're this and they're that. I'm sure there's a wide spectrum of old age homes as well. There are ones that are run well, there are ones that are, they just take the money and they couldn't care less, and there's everything in between. And this is where I think old age homes with some link to the church or Christian values would possibly be a middle ground where they are taken care of. I am of the opinion that any organization that runs needs to make money, unless it's purely charity. And old age homes, if I'm paying, I would like it to be free, but the person running it would have to make some money. Now, how much money is a different question. But we cannot say that, hey, the guy was sick and there was no ambulance in the property to rush the person to the hospital. But that costs money. And that can't be funded other than by the people who are using those facilities. So bad-mouthing anything is a new trend. Old age home, bundle it up under one big umbrella saying it's a money-making, blood-sucking kind of organization. But no, they serve a purpose. Now, what kind of old age home is very relevant. And I think if it's managed well by responsible people who have a service-minded orientation, such as run by the church or associated to the church in some form or fashion, I think it's still okay.
Coming back to the central topic, old age homes within the Christian concept. So yes, it is needed. Whether people are misusing it or using it in the right way, I think that is not really of concern. Do we fulfill our Christian duties by having an old age home? And therefore, is an old age home relevant to me as a Christian? To provide for the old, to provide for the aged, to provide for those who are abandoned, those who have nowhere to go. I think the true Christian attitude can be demonstrated, the Christian value of love, therefore, can be demonstrated by the presence, very fact that we established an old age home. I think, therefore, one way of showing your Christian qualities is by having such an organization that looks after the elderly, whether they were abandoned or they were sent there by love or it was their own decision. I think the relevance of having the organization or a home is really not the debate. It is required.
But how it is managed and how it is run.
Yes.
Whether they
What
get
is
the
your
proper care.
intention of sending your old to the old age home? That also.
And so, yes, as he said, if it is run by a church, he will feel much more comfortable. When I say look at it from the Christian point of view, yes, it is required. The love, they seek love even at that age. And I remember while doing the project, they all wanted just to sit around you and talk.
Yeah.
They want.
They just wanted
They want presence.
They just need a presence.
To talk. Whoever they want to talk to, you are not their child, but they are most happy and willing to talk to you. I mean, that gives them satisfaction. So you spend a day there and they're more than happy. Whether they know you or not is not relevant. And many of them have illness like dementia, Alzheimer's. They can't remember. They'll come and talk the same thing as you said. The same thing they will come and ask you over and over again, your name. And they've forgotten after 2 minutes. And you know the next question is going to be your name. But it's nice. It's nice there.
So widely speaking, yes, old age homes are relevant in Christian context. As we saw in the beginning, Robin very clearly put it out that when there is a need, you have no other option but with a firm and intense desire that your parents are taken care of in a good way, we send them to old age homes. And then we had Neville who spoke about how there are many other options. The way people can choose how they put out their duties. Very well, Carol spoke about the Christian duty given to us by our Lord. So, thank you for being with us in this episode of Green Pastures. Till we meet next time, stay blessed.